Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the Garrisons and the alts, because I've heard a lot of talk about people saying that the Garrison features a real drag on alts, and I suppose as someone with 7 alts that I'm currently doing a bit of Garrison stuff, which not really that much though, maybe it's worth having a bit of a chat. So this is going to be a video that's got 10 points to it, yes, but I'm going to start off by highlighting what I think the actual problem is. And, well, it's pretty simple. The problem is busy work. The current design drives gameplay in which there is just too much logging onto one character, then logging off, switching to another alt, and fiddling with a bunch of menus. Now, people might say that, for an example, the problem with alts in the Garrison is that, it takes ages to get your alt's Garrison up to speed, or that it's just a pain in the arse to manage. That's totally true, but when you boil down so many of the individual complaints about the Garrison feature and alts, I think what it comes down to is that annoying slog of logging in, logging out, dealing with user interface elements in one character rather than playing the game, and, well, essentially just that, not playing World of Warcraft. And I think that really the purpose of a UI is that it's supposed to provide a kind of accessible window into the game world so that you can really get yourself into the actual game. I think it's less cool when the user interface itself becomes the game, and that's kind of what the Garrison feature currently does in many ways. And when you're doing it on loads of characters, you're even just clicking that log off button, clicking a new character, clicking log in, clicking on all the various Garrison menu things, clicking and log off again. There's a lot of, well, UI interaction, and I don't think that's particularly compelling, and I think it, well, adds up to be a little bit of an issue. So overall, I think it is important to say, of course, that I don't really think that, say, clicking on the Garrison mission menu is actual gameplay. I mean, it's Facebook levels of video game engagement in comparison to raiding, doing PvP, farming old mounts, achievements, etc, etc, etc. Really, from what I've heard, it just seems like this busy work is the general problem, it's the general feeling that people get, and perhaps it's the real source of all of these issues. Now, there is a discussion to be had on whether the need to do Garrison stuff is only a perceived one. Personally, I think that it's 50-50. Yeah, there is quite a perceived need, but also there are a lot of very easy to obtain rewards from the Garrison. That's a discussion for another day. For now, let's talk about some quick little tweaks that could hopefully help the system. I'm not talking about broad redesigns. You could redesign Garrisons to be infinitely more alt-friendly. This is more about little tweaks that could be easily popped in within the current framework that would hopefully just increase people's quality of life a little bit. And the very first one I'm going to start off with is a shared vault. This would work a bit like the stash in Diablo 3. Just imagine it as perhaps an account-wide guild vault. Unlike a guild vault, you couldn't put in your soul-bound items, but I think it would have a really nice effect. So imagine you're a leather worker and you want to queue up some work orders, but your leather is on another character. Well, right now you have to log in and log off to the character with the leather, click in the mailbox, go on to your other character, open the mailbox, then do the leather stuff. Now let's say you've got 3 characters with a few different professions. It could be the case you're just constantly logging in, logging off, carting mats around the place, and that's not particularly fun and engaging gameplay. Well, if you could just throw all your mats into an account-wide stash, boom, problem solved. And I think that would really just cut down on the busy work involved with managing your professions with the Garrison. Now, I actually personally use an add-on called Alcoholic, which helps me track what I've got in the bags of any character. But if you're using the default UI, it really must be a pain in the ass working out just where the hell your materials are. So something like a shared vault would be really awesome. Next, I think follower upgrades should be bind on account. This is kind of simple, but getting these in multiple characters is a bit of a pain in the ass, and it really is an extra kind of kick in ye old nuts / arse whatever, that you've got loads of of the follower upgrades in your main character, and then you've just got that alt which has got none, and that's kind of annoying. If these were BOA, I think it would be lovely. The main way of getting these, of course, is opening salvage crates and things like that, which involves constantly sending followers off on many missions throughout the day. This adds up to more busy work, because there is a perceived need that if you want to gear up the followers on your alts so that you can get raid quality gear, that you have to constantly churn them through missions as much as you can to get the salvage crates so you can open the crates to hopefully get the upgrades. Really, I've already earned them on my main, and I don't see there being much value in having to just re-engage with that whole, mission grind process to do it on alts. Now, if you applied that principle to say gear, then I could say, well, I've already earned the raid gear on my main, can I just not give my alt a full set of raid gear? I think it is completely, it's different, and fundamentally, I don't think there's a great amount of gameplay when it actually comes to doing missions. I think it's just busy work, and making those things bind on account would be, I'd say, very positive to the overall attrition that the Garrison seems to cause. And I suppose next, let's talk about a follower XP buff of some sort. And I actually do like the idea of buffing follower XP for your alts. I've seen this suggested loads of different times, and it is an interesting idea. First of all, it would of course cut down on the time that you need to put into your other characters' followers, which I think is fine. Remember, back in Mists of Pandaria, they did a Valor Point buff of 50% for alts if you had maxed your main's weekly cap. Perhaps having a single level 3 Garrison could grant an account-wide experience bonus, or something like that, to follower XP. I think it would be kinda nice. Another direction that they could go with is having a purchasable bind-on-account item that grants XP to a follower, so basically like an armor or a weapon token, but for experience instead. They actually had these in the beta for the sake of testing, so perhaps a balanced version of one of those would be a good idea. I can see many people actually having value in the idea of trading in their Garrison resources for something like this, and I think it would be at least relatively in line with the kind of Garrison resource spending revamp that they did with patch 6.1. And next, I suppose while we have just mentioned Garrison resources, let's have a bit of a chat about BOA Garrison resources. I'm not 100% how you would do this, actually. I would either like it to be that more Garrison resource items or bind on account, or perhaps you could just have it so that you could flat out transfer Garrison resources from character to character. Again, when you're on your alts, needing Garrison resources just means you're logging in and out, going through that cycle, doing mission board clicking to get those missions that you can send your Garrison or your Scavenger followers on. That again just adds to the daily busy work. Now, I can perhaps see people saying that this would be like passing Valor points from one character to another, if, of course, Valor points are still a thing, and I disagree. VP was earned anyway, by doing dungeons, raids, heroic scenarios, and things that I think were main WoW content, like the core of playing your character, the things that people do at endgame. VP is earned. However, Garrison resources, technically they're earned, but you're just engaging in a loot dispenser that, is the mission system. And sure, that's fine on your main character, but if it's on a bunch of alts, I'd say, yeah, you can undermine that a little bit, you can skip past a little bit of it, because you've already put the effort in on your main, you've already got those Garrison resources floating around, and it would just save us all a complete pain in the ass, and I think that's a pretty good thing overall. Okay, now they were my 4, I think, main things. I'd say they'd be really easy to implement, and they'd have a really just short-term positive effect that's an instant quick fix. Is it going to be as effective as, say, redesigning the Garrison to make it more alt-friendly from a base design? Probably not, but I think they would at least be things that would help. Now, the next 6 or whatever points in this list are going to be just quick little things that I thought I'd throw in. Much of the justification for them is the same as the justification for all my previous points, and I don't want to be prattling on and just repeating myself. So, first of all, I think there should be a way to boost up the build speed of buildings for your alts. Now, perhaps this could be a bind-on-account Garrison resource item, and I'm sure loads of people would find this handy. When you're gearing up your alts Garrison, or not gearing, I suppose just building up, and you think, excellent, I've done that, now I need to come back in an hour, and then after that I need to come back in another hour. Well, my main's got loads of Garrison resources, just give me a few building rushes or something to allow me to quickly construct buildings. I don't think that would be damaging at all, and it would save us all time which hopefully could be spent doing, more core gameplay things like dungeons and raids and fun stuff. Next, I also think it would be pretty nifty if you could melt down armor or weapon upgrade sets into regular tokens. Is this necessarily a thing that's super to do with gearing up alts? Maybe not, but I thought it was good to throw in here anyway. So at this stage, War Ravaged and Blackrock items are not particularly useful. How about you let us melt down a Blackrock token into a +6 upgrade, or a War Ravaged one into a +3 upgrade token? I mean, yeah, it's less of a raw amount of item level upgrades, but if you've got a whole bunch of 650 characters, or followers, well, that would be pretty handy to do, and frankly, those things are just sitting, taking up our bags and being vendored, and I'd say this would be a pretty good bit of functionality that they could actually just throw into the war mill / bunker. It would be kinda nice. Next, another thing that could be done is a bit of a change to the design of the herb garden or mine, such that it would take a few days to fill up. Now, the net resources per day could be the exact same, but if it's the sort of thing that would take 4 days to fill up to its maximum, so with the maximum being 4 times its current size in terms of raw amount of resources, then you would have less pressure to constantly cycle through every character and deal with it. If you don't feel like collecting stuff from your mine every single day, maybe you want to wait 2 or 3 days, then fair enough, it's no skin in your back, and hopefully a change like that, or a tweak like that, will help to reduce the perception that you must cycle through your herb garden and mine every day. Though I don't know if at this stage of the game that's a perception that's particularly prevalent, though certainly at the very start of the expansion it kind of was. A lot of people also suggested to me some way of the herb garden and mine automatically gathering themselves. I think that will be a little bit OP, but what you could do is maybe tell the NPC at either one of those buildings to collect resources for you. That would mean that the kind of work order pile of like stuff that's there could maybe automatically fill, and you would maybe get a net of 60% of what you would have got if you did it manually, but those things would just be generated, and maybe that would be a good plan. Maybe, though, that would be completely overpowered, and that's the game playing itself for you. I'm not 100% sure. Honestly, the mine and herb garden are things that I stopped engaging with for the sake of my own sanity long ago. And next, I think we should also have faster mission completion. Now, I don't mean in terms of how long it takes to actually complete a mission. I just mean the animations that play when you complete a mission and you actually are sitting there, you know, clicking next, 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 next. The default mission completion is really just so slow. It's got a pointless animation that doesn't give you much information, really, and it must be a real just pain on alts that just takes more time than it needs to. I wouldn't know, because I've been using Garrison Mission Manager since the first week of Warlords of Draenor, and it does all of the mission completion at once. You literally hit complete all, it zooms through them all, lovely, quick, and just a fantastic addition that makes the Garrison mission system a lot more bearable in my opinion. But as always, even if an add-on is super prevalent like that, I mean, actually, if an add-on is as prevalent as Garrison Mission Manager is, then it perhaps suggests that it would be worth including that functionality in the base UI for the sake of everyone's sanity. At the very least, you know, across a few characters, it would mean perhaps spending even just a minute or two less time looking at pointless animations, and while that might not seem like a giant amount, I would say the phrase death by 1,000 cuts, obviously a pretty intense phrase there, but I think it does have a little bit of a grain of truth when it comes to this. Yeah, having those animations being a bit quicker or whatever isn't massive, but it just gets rid of one of those small little annoyances, and perhaps one of the issues with busy work and the attrition that some of these Garrison systems has caused is just that, death by 1,000 cuts. I'm sure a lot of people will say some of the things that I've talked about in this video are small, you know, that they're petty, and I actually partially agree with them, but if you've got loads of small petty things, I think it adds up to a general feeling that's maybe larger than the sum of its parts. And next, I think a very cool thing that they could do is expanding the Armory API that's available to web developers and just general application developers to include Garrison functionality. We can look at our characters on something like Ask Mr. Robot. How about they just let us look at our whole Garrison? Maybe it could be something where, just imagine, say, a single Ask Mr. Robot page that gives you a summary across all of your characters of just all the Garrison stuff. So you know, character X doesn't have a work order going, I'll go and do that. That would be far handier in terms of what people actually end up doing than, say, logging in and out of all of their characters to check that stuff manually. Hell, if they were doing that expanded Armory API, maybe they could throw it into their own, application on phones, and maybe it would just be a viewer. Perhaps they don't want us to be able to access that feature outside of the game. Whatever, that's not what this video is about. But I just mean like an easy way to check out all that stuff that doesn't eat into our game time. I think, you know, ultimately, especially with how the WoW player base is getting older, we don't all have loads of time to play the game, so when we do play the game, maybe it just stings that bit more that you're kind of fiddling around with the user interface. I mean, I know that personally, like with my own university work, being a sort of programmer, lol, that I'm fiddling around with UIs all the time, and when it comes to my game, I don't really want to do that because it feels too similar to, well, work. I suppose that is a bit of an overarching theme of this video, isn't it? It's about trying to make it feel less like work by having quick little convenience things that don't undermine the whole experience. And finally, for the very last point of this video, prepare for the salt. They could make content in the world that's actually compelling, because the current stuff in the world is not that great. Perhaps, right, people would feel less stuck inside their garrison if they felt like there was a compelling bit of world content to take them out of their garrison. I don't think reps are that, currently. I don't think Apex's missions are that. Come on, everyone laughs at Apex's missions, and there ain't that much else. And I don't think that, say, standing in one location, waiting for a Void Talon of the Darkstar spawn for 10 hours, or maybe a Pound Fist spawn, is a bit of gameplay that would be of much appeal to the majority of the player base. It just feels like there's not a great alternative, and because garrisons have easy-ish to access rewards, well, that's just the game for some people, and I think it's Blizzard's fault for designing it that way. Yes, a lot of people are going to say, look, it's only a perceived need to do the garrisons all the time. What I'd say to that is, well, the perception's quite clearly there, and it's Blizzard who made the perception, and perhaps they should try to tackle it a little bit, because I don't think it's very healthy for the game currently. Anyway, that's been it. This has been a kind of hybrid list video slash discussion about, I think, a very interesting topic that's one of the sort of flavor of the day topics, honestly, with Warlords. Let me know what your thoughts are, and especially if you've got any cool ideas for redesigning the garrison or just a little tweak that would really make it a lot more palatable to you. I'm very interested to hear. Anyway, enough of my incessant rambling. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.